So Jason, we just saw an empty lot that's waiting to get printed on. We saw an active print, we saw a finished print, we saw the roof going on. What's the next stage from here?
So now we're just really in like full operation mode. Where Lennar is sort of going ahead of us and pouring slabs. And then we show up with the printers, we mount the rails, the printer stands up, we start printing, and then we remove the printer, and then they come on and do finish out. And so now we're just chasing each other around the lot, right? So we're chasing their slabs, they're chasing our finished prints. We're trying to get this done as fast as we can.
So there's no plumbing or electrical installed in this house yet, right?
There is some plumbing, rough out, and electrical often in the foundations themselves, but very floor plan by floor plan.
Before the print.
Before the print, yeah.
And then when will that start on this print? Will they do the roof first? Or?
They typically come in and do the roof first, and once they've got the full enclosure done, then they'll come in with all the enclosures.
Is there a waiting period for the concrete to cure before they do that?
We typically like it to wait at least a week. It's technically strong enough. Sooner than that, we like them to wait.
What are the big inspections that are not typical to the construction process that change for the printing process?
You know, I don't think the inspections themselves are special. It's the sort of on the spreadsheet, the same inspection has to happen. The first time an inspector sees a 3D printed house, they often will sort of pause and take a minute, but in terms of like structural inspections, electrical inspections, plumbing inspections, it's very similar to the traditional process.
Yeah, and so do you have any estimate when this home we're sending it might be complete?
I don't know what the schedule is on this one. Those timelines are not often, they're always controlled by Lennar. When I have visibility and is in the icon schedule. So I don't always have visibility into like Lennar's like finish on schedule.
How has the time to print completion changed from your first home on this project to now?
Yeah, so our very first house, we went very slow, just to like make sure everything was exactly right. We had Lennar out several times to check on print quality, make sure they liked what they were seeing. And then we brought the second printer out, and then the third. So we sort of scaled up deliberately and carefully. But now we're on sort of batch 2.5, and so we're really starting to find our stride. And so those first houses were completed on the order of like 3 to 4 weeks each, and now we're sort of targeting like 2 to 3 weeks per house. Weather cooperating, for printing. And then we're also in negotiations to see about printing 24 hours a day. It's our actual favorite way to print that we often get to do with the DoD is printing 24 hours a day because, you know, robots don't need bathroom breaks and things like that.
Sure.
So it's best, almost like an airplane, like once you hit cruising altitude, you'd rather just keep flying because it really is the takeoff and the landing that take up all the time and actually add most of the risk to the print. So once we're printing, we like to run as long as we can.
Isn't there some kind of scheduled cleaning process during a 24-hour print?
There is often like maintenance, but you can do it either at shift change and be quick about it, or you can sort of clean certain parts without shutting down the whole machine. Certain steps.
And so, what activities are you looking at automating next?
So the big things are for us in terms of what's next for Icon is like squeezing as much out of the present automation as we can. And so we're certainly looking at, and I think you'll see us starting to print foundations and roof structures coming like 12 to 18 months, which is just like taking the 3D printing itself even further. The next thing to automate would be all the auxiliary activities that are inherent to 3D printing, like the reinforcement, misting of the concrete, things like that, are sort of like very easy and ripe for automating, and those efforts are underway. And then the sort of the other big bucket of things to automate are like process automations that largely happen through software, not robotic automations. So those are underway as well, and a lot of those will start delivering out to job sites either in June or December this year.
I saw on your work site you have 2 enormous TV screens with insane data from all the projects. You can actively see which printers are printing, cogs, moving.
Yeah, we have a pretty incredible amount of sensors on both the Magma and the Vulcan already. We actually are going to like double or triple the sensor load on the machines themselves in the coming year, and then we're capturing all that data in real time for every printer. Not just here, we'll print with the printers we've got over on the Gulf Coast right now, printers we've got in West Texas, and so it allows us to monitor the print and to learn about best practices. And then when things are going wrong, now that we've got a fleet, sometimes we only had one printer in one house. If something went wrong, you didn't know if it was a material error, you didn't know if it was a robot error, software error, or like an operator error. Operator skipped a step. But with the kind of data that we're getting now, we can often know that like, hey, that that machine always prints fine, or that machine is always buggy no matter which crew we print on, or that crew, no matter where you put them, the machines that crew is on always print better. And so you can start seeing like where the human element interfaces with the robotic or the software elements, and it allows us to just get better and better all the time.
You have all kinds of different designs here, and I imagine you have lots of designs you're even working on creating like a huge catalog potentially.
Correct.
What does the printed house selection process look like in the future? Do people get involved in that? Is there just an overwhelming amount? Like, is AI involved?
Yeah, I think we'll have a lot more to say about this in the future, but your intuitions are correct.
Dancing around it.
You're stepping on it. It's certainly once your building material is fluid, it opens up all kind of interesting architectural options. And once your approach to construction is digital, when building is fluid and architecture is digital, it really opens up some interesting opportunities, especially to like reproduce the designs quickly and affordably, to modify those designs quickly and affordably, and then once you can establish some patterns, you can start generating designs. And so those efforts are certainly underway. And I think it was just 5 years ago that we printed our first home. And so you can imagine like where the internet or airplanes were at year 5. I think the future of robotic construction is really bright, and there's a lot of the most exciting innovations are yet to come.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. And seeing projects like this, it definitely makes a lot of the things you said last time we talked true.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I look forward to the next time we get to see even more growth. So the technology, design is great. Right now, most of your buildings are vertical. You're not doing any concave or convex features. Is that for any reason?
We are not doing that on customer projects yet. Back at the lab, we're running some like very exciting and very aggressive experiments in terms of architectural possibilities, both for the wall systems and roof structures. And I think you'll see those start to ship commercially on the job sites in the coming year. I don't think actually I know. In fact, probably our most daring architectural in terms of like challenge of print, sort of the radicalness of the architecture, will be unveiling at South by Southwest this year.
Nice. Wow. Okay. And so the permitting and insurance, all those challenges. I heard some groups, they got one home printed, but because it was only one in the area, they had no comps, and that made it really challenging for them.
That's interesting. I think we haven't had quite that challenge, and I think it's maybe we anticipated some of this. So I bet those groups will get there.
Start with 6 and multiple officials.
Yeah, and well, even with the Chacon House, I think I've had a lot of experience in construction, building, and remodeling in my career before even this company. I think we're just able to anticipate those things a little bit better. I bet those other groups are talking about. I bet they're going to get there because concrete's a really well understood material. And if you surprise them with a house that they didn't see coming, then of course. But we've been in conversation with like regulatory authorities, permitting authorities, mortgage makers, insurers, almost from the day our company was started. And so we were able to just get ahead of it a little bit. But I think ultimately, if you take the long view, these homes that we're in right now, I think they exceed building code structurally by 350%, and they exceed energy code by 250%. And
wow.
So I don't worry about these sort of performing as well as conventional homes at all. And so I think once there is a large enough body of knowledge, in the long run, I don't think it's going to be a big issue.
What does Icon need the most at this stage right now to grow? I mean, you guys have the capital, you have a great team.
Yeah, and so right now we haven't stepped on like the hyper growth. I mean, although I think we grew 400% last year, I think we grew 400% again this year, and then we'll grow 400% again this year. I suspect that is pretty fast, but in terms of like, we are pretty eager to be building thousands of homes per year in short order. We definitely sort of held back on some of the opportunities until this project was done, because this was our first sort of stage of like fleet deployed at scale, 100 home community, and we wanted to learn these lessons well before we stepped on it. If you know with Lennar, it's like by many accounts, like the largest, best, most capable production scale builder. Like if we can succeed at this project, I think that's going to give us the confidence to really step on the gas here.
Yeah, it seems like you have a couple like fast approaching S-curves of one, maximizing the potential of each machine, and also you're getting more machines out all the time, and I've been speeding up the manufacturing
100%
process.
right. Yeah, you've got to get the technology reliable, like the sort of core hardware and software materials that's reliable. In the early days, like I'm sure you've seen this with a lot of folks, it's like sometimes like there are days you go and you don't print a single layer, like nothing is working. And now we're approaching like 70-80% uptime on these machines, which means we still can get them even more reliable. And uptime in terms of like, sometimes the machines usually will run 100% of the time, but sometimes they'll still put down a bead that we don't like that we'll pull, and that counts as a knock on our uptime. And so still looking for like 100% uptime, which of course will improve speed and cost further. But once you've got the reliability and the print aesthetics and quality in order, then you start attacking cost, and then you start automating other things, and you keep going. But you need it to sort of get to a critical mass of cost and reliability and aesthetics and quality before you can turn everything up, before you sort of just dig your grave faster as a startup. If you're losing money every time you print a house, and if the customers don't sign up for the second project, you usually don't get a second chance. We've just been very careful and deliberate about those things. So like I think every single customer we work with has signed up for a second project. Yeah, we're as busy as we can be with the credits we've got for the next couple of years.
Very cool. Are they made in America?
Yeah, they're made in our factory here in Austin.
Awesome.
Yeah, so some components, of course, come from overseas, but like the actual manufacturing and assembly happens right here in Austin. It's a proper factory.
Are there some things that you've had to, I know last time there was a chip shortage, you were taking chips out of phones and stuff.
Yeah.
Anything else you've moved in-house?
Yeah, we were definitely in a big like manufacturing ramp up getting ready for this project. And so we're graduating from 1 or 2 homes a year to 100, 150, 500 homes a year. I think a lot of those changes have taken place at this point. We still outsource electronics and computing elements. We don't manufacture chips or electronics, but just about everything else we go from pretty close to raw materials like metal blanks, blank motherboards, things like this, and assemble and manufacture them.
I noticed down the road on the way driving up here, there's a lot of earth moving happening down there. Some big boulders. Are you able to use any of that material?
We have not started recirculating natural geologic material. Right now, to get this level of print quality, requires a bit of time and consistency. So we can go from area to area. Sand is not always the same sand. Calcium carbonate is not always the same calcium carbonate. But once we sort of establish the wisdom of a local geographic area, we try not to vary too much. I think in the future, our window of variability will expand, but right now we're really controlling the quality and longevity of the product. So we don't play that game with the commercial product. We do a lot of fun experiments in the lab, but we take the field with our gameplays on the
Yeah, what other steps are you taking to maximize the predictability of your outcomes?
data. I mean, as you saw, there's just an immense sensor suite on every single printer. We work very closely with Palantir to host and aggregate all of our data and to serve as insights, the things that we're doing. And so the data richness and just the abundance of data we're getting all of a sudden, right? Last, 2 years, you get like 1 or 2 houses of data per year. We're going to get hundreds of homes and dozens of printers worth of data in the coming years. It's amazing with regards to like the actual insights it produces.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see that heads-up display they provided you guys with. I want one of those for my channel.
Yeah, I mean, we can, as you saw, we can monitor every single motor on every single printer, every batch of material. We know where that material, like we can track it back to like source of material. We can tell you which operator was operating which batch, on which day. We know the weather when each layer was laid down. And so we can start to identify like, can we correlate with how frequent beads were pulled with certain weather events? It's like, okay, then that's the spot that we need to like work on the material science to make sure we're printing at a higher quality in certain weather conditions. So it can help focus you on the problems that matter, that can help you go faster and more affordably.
So how much data do you need adjusting some of these things manually? Someone sees the sun just came out, we need to add a little bit more water.
Yeah, so you need enough data to like establish the pattern, and then you usually will, in a very targeted way, go out and verify the pattern. Then in fact, like you sort of can purposely change the variable to see if you can like cause the effect that you saw. And if you can cause the effect that you're looking for, then you know you're on the right track, and then you can start implementing fixes.
So are you guys working on testing those things out?
All the time, yeah.
So
we have a whole data science team and a whole sort of suite of Palantir engineers. So almost all they do is they're like analyzing the data daily from these prints, and often the turnaround on like action is like under 24 hours.
And are all the printers, can you do software updates over the air?
We can. We typically don't do it in the middle of a print, and so right now, because we're not operating 24 hours a day out here, the printers hibernate overnight. We almost do all the engineering work overnight. That way during when the sun's out, we can be printing. It's almost all of our engineering efforts happen overnight, including software.
Do you have a generator powering the printer, or is it 440
No,
everywhere?
Yeah. This is typical site construction power, and so we have power poles like it would be typical to a job site. Matter of fact, the project was originally scheduled to start a few months earlier, but during the sort of the global supply chain crunch, we were waiting around for a few months. This whole neighborhood needed a transformer, and there weren't transformers to be found. But once the transformer's here and the power's on, then we run off with power.
Yeah, I'm going to have to start learning more about 100 home construction projects.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
a little different.
Yeah, they are. They were different for us, right? Like in terms of like we knew how to run a printer, we knew how to set up a printer. There's so many logistical tricks. They can like move the needle on the cost of the home, or like anywhere like tens of dollars per square foot. Whether your uptime is maximized and like how efficient you are. So it's not sort of like, oh, you can pick up an extra 5% if you move a little faster. It's like at scale, the whole machine of Icon has to work efficiently. I mean, one way to think about what's going on is like if printers are like little bitty house factories that just sort of move to the spot and like manufacture the house, this is like a giant ghost factory that like appears, delivers the neighborhood, and then like moves on. So this has to run. I'm sure, you know, that metaphor, the sort of things that are true for any factory are true once you're running a fleet of printers out on a job site.
Are you guys, is your relationship with Lennar very tight? Are you looking for other home builders?
I would say our relationship with Lennar is like very special. They're, to my experience so far, just the most innovative, progressive, quality-oriented, people-oriented production builder that we've come across yet. And so they've just been like, they're sort of open-handed, open-hearted, open book approach. So like they've shown us their books. Here's where we make money. Here's what you have to be if you want to keep working with us. They've helped us work out architectural details. They've helped us negotiate better prices with our material suppliers. They've just been like a huge fan advocate support completely. And of course just the sort of like larger validation that like if you can do this with Lennar, who are sort of the best in the business, then you can probably do it with anybody. And as a young, you know, we were only 3.5 years old when we started talking about Lennar, and when the best in the business take a bet on you like that as a young company, it's just invaluable.
Yeah, I saw news recently they announced a 100 home project with Musk. You guys have anything to do with that?
I think Lennar builds like 60,000 on the order of like 60,000 homes a year, and so we don't comment on our future projects, and we certainly don't comment on the future projects of our partners.
Well, I'll keep a close eye out for that.
Yeah.
But it seems like Lennar definitely has a forward-looking focus.
Yeah, they absolutely do. They are. I mean, I think maybe a lot of entrepreneurs have heard the phrase, you should be like disrupting yourself. And they're one of the first like large, well-established companies I've ever met that like is actually taking that very seriously at the highest levels. They are always actively trying to disrupt themselves. And it's like very, very impressive. And so I'm long on Lennar.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're one of the higher-end scale home builders. And they, I haven't seen any other like super high-tech projects like this.
Yeah, I think they were playing around with smart home stuff like back in the 1980s. I mean, so this isn't like a new thing where they start trying new approaches, new methods, new materials. They've been like always trying to like look for ways to improve on what they do, and I think over the long haul that's paid out. That's why they're as successful as they are.
How has the startup environment changed over the past 6 months with the macro economy? Sorry for the tough question.
No, it is a huge change. For the first 4 years of our company, like a lot of venture-backed startups, we would like hit a set of milestones, and then you would raise money or whatever. But all the way through the history of our company, we would have a successful fundraising, then we would map out with our board, with our investors, with our management team, what the next set of milestones we wanted to hit were. And then every time we had people approaching us offering the next round of funding before we could even achieve the milestones. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we would often say, hey, we're not raising yet, we want to get X done. And the conversation was often like, it looks like you're on the right track. We're sort of like, we believe now, so let's go. And so we did. We every step of the way raised money about a year sooner than we anticipated so far.
It's great.
And right, but it is great. And so we have a really healthy balance sheet right now. But the way that we're talking about it, thinking about it, is like it needs to last effectively indefinitely. We are not counting on that same effect happening again. And so we are taking costs very seriously. We are focusing on projects that we know that we can deliver profitably. And so some of the more eccentric things that we've been invited to do, we've definitely been invited to the Caribbean, we've been invited to the Middle East, we've been invited to Africa, we've been invited to India. And I think we'll get to all of those places. But of course, when you're like a local small company, those are like lower margin projects. And so the way that's shifted for us is we've been focusing on more domestic and more projects close to home where our like margins and efficiencies are better, so that we can survive. Because ultimately we're trying to build a 100-year company, right? And so like this won't be the first recession or like economic challenge we'll have to survive as a company. And I think learning these lessons early in our life, rather than 10 years from now, ultimately will serve us really, really well.
In your deal with Lennar, what kind of risk are you assuming
What do you mean?
in these homes?
Oh yeah, so we have a fixed price contract on these homes, and the fixed price is 1 penny cheaper than Lennar pays for these wall systems on the open market.
Sure.
And then it's on us to so we've assumed the risk of delivering what we say we're going to deliver.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a tremendous learning experience. You've already learned so much from it. Is there any chance you might turn a profit?
Yeah, I think there is. We don't like to disclose our numbers, but what I'll say is like every project we have booked from now, every single project we have booked right now is a profitable project.
Wow. And your walls are 1 cent cheaper than the Lennar.
That's the contract we signed. And
Yeah.
it's on us to see how good we can do.
So hopefully you assume that means a decent amount of risk for the project.
Yeah.
You're going to deliver what you said at the fixed price. A fixed price contract is super rare these days because construction costs are so unpredictable.
But as an early stage company, it's eyes wide open. It helps you focus on the challenges you have to solve. It's like, hey guys, if we can print faster and more affordably than Lennar, then we can, no asterisk, look anyone in the face and say we're the fastest, cheapest way of building in the world. And that really is the goal here. And that's the kind of like step function change. And if we can do that, even at like a very early stage of the technology, it makes us feel like the future's super bright for robotic construction. And so we wanted that challenge sooner rather than later. You sort of see even public companies do this sort of like adjusted gross profit dollars or whatever, and it's like you really want this to work with no adjustment. You want it to just work. You want it to be fast, profitable, more affordable than what's available in the open market. And then what we think is really that I always have to make sure we don't leave out is like you're not just getting an apples for apples. Like as I said, like our wall systems are far stronger, far more energy efficient, with far more architectural possibility. And so when you can deliver a better product, not a like product, a better product, faster and cheaper. At that point, I think we get to grow as fast as we want to.
And what's the savings from the first home compared to the last home? Let's say in like, I guess dollars. How much more efficient would the last one be?
Yeah, a lot of that we'll have to see.
Percentage-wise.
A lot of that we'll have to see in analysis, right? I mean, as I said, we know per printer, per job site, whether that day was profitable. Actually, we can actually look up and find out whether the last hour was profitable if we want to. Like, so we can intervene in real time. It's like, hey, why is that house off track? And we can intervene in real time. The big needle moving things on costs that are happening as we between the start and finish of this project. One is like bringing our own batch plant online, which should cut the cost of our own materials in about half. And we have several more automations that are going to be delivering. One set of automations that will deliver in June and another set that will deliver in September. This should move 2 to 3 FTEs off each print site. And so like you cut your materials cost in half and you can remove more than half the labor. I think we like where we're headed from a cost perspective.
Yeah, I mean the robots are doing the heavy lifting basically right now, tons and tons of concrete. So
our goal is to have less than one human being per job site.
doing mostly intellectual work.
Correct. So like the goal here is like one person per 5 to 10 printers.
Wow.
Right. That would be then you've really automated something.
Yeah, and I guess that's really
Right now the robot and the human sort of collaborating right on this lab as you see, but eventually it should be less than a human per site.
that's where a big chunk of the savings is, getting down from a few people operating to a couple to one.
You got it. Which is why it's like, hey, if we are faster and cheaper today at this state of the technology, things that we can see coming in the next 18 to 24 months are even more compelling.
I I imagine the faster, cheaper hours are kind of like optimal. Everything's going great. You got a good speed going.
Yeah, because again, if you have a printer standing around and you only kept half the beads that day, you're only printing half the time, still bear the full cost.
Or the new guy messes up.
Yep, the new guy messes up, but we know where the errors come from now. And so we can say, hey, we didn't train that properly. We can intervene and hopefully the mistake doesn't happen a second time.
That data is so valuable.
It's unbelievable.
It's so much different from a lot of teams. They're just getting that experience in person, so that data point only exists in their mind. If they go to a different company, that data point's gone, but you have all that stuff in the foundry.
Yeah,
it's incredible. And so, I still don't really. I guess what you need most right now to grow is just keep moving, keep building.
Yeah, we need to now operate with on paper we are the fastest, cheapest way to build in the world. And now we need to operationalize that with like high level of consistency. So like right now, when we are not the fastest, cheapest, it's usually it's our own fault in some way. It's a failure of the technology to solve the material science or the humans on site. And so it's now like getting very good at like operational execution. And it's pretty easy on one printer. It's different on a job site with 7 and soon to be even more printers, especially when you're working around other people whose behaviors you don't always control. So learning to get robotic levels of consistency at scale is the next big step for us.
Pulling that reality to meet that paper.
That's right. Yeah, the map is not the territory. The spreadsheets say everything should happen this way. Sometimes you get out there, the territory is a little different, then you adapt and you improve. Or it's like there's things that happen that you hadn't thought about before that you have to develop either technology or process solutions for. But we're getting more and more of that every day. And so every house we've ever printed in the history of the company has been more beautiful than the one before it, has been faster than the one before it, has been more affordable than the one before it. And so we expect that trend to continue.
Yeah, and I think life wouldn't be so interesting if everything was super predictable. So
yeah, that's right. And then also just to say, like, you've been following us for a while now, and you see, like, our default has always been to try to build for customers and to get out of the lab as much, like, because there's just no place where the learnings are as honest or as meaningful as when you're doing something for a big customer out in the real world.
You know what I haven't seen yet today is a crack in the walls.
Yeah, no, you better not. We don't allow this. Those are against the rules.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Do other people have cracks in their walls?
I mean, concrete cracks is the law, right? Eventually, maybe not.
Yeah, sounds like an excuse.
Well, this is mortar, not concrete, right?
Yeah, it's somewhere on the spectrum, right? Like, I think those things. I kept trying to figure out what it was called too, and I think before 3D printing, nobody had ever forced them to be defined very accurately. That's sort of like you had like fine grain precision stuff over here, and like coarse grain concrete structures, and they never sort of cross paths. And so 3D printing sort of exists materially as an interesting intersection of things that hadn't really intersected before. So as long as it produces beautiful houses, I don't care what you call it.
It's so weird. Like 1% of people know the difference, even if you mention concrete or cement or mortar.
Oh my
concrete.
gosh, that's exactly right.
And then if you say mortar, 15% of people aren't going to understand what you're printing.
Yeah.
So you really have to say it's like forced concrete.
Yes.
Or at least for my videos, I've been forced to do that. So maybe, I don't know, we can get that written down somewhere officially.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Somebody smart will have to define it for us.
Cool. And yeah, what else do you guys have going on? You have a new CFO from the last time I met you.
Yeah, Tom Van Rugbauer joined us as CFO. He really his impact over like us growing up, not only as a technology but as a business, has been felt immediately. Tom was probably like the singularly best possible CFO for our company. He was director of finance over at Tesla before they went public, and sort of went on that journey from pre-public to public with them. And he was the founding CFO at Nest, and then he was the vice president at Google. Then he was the CFO at Sunrun, one of the largest publicly traded solar companies. So he has a lot of experience around factories and big industrial things, and running like hard tech, breakthrough tech companies, service companies. He's been publicly traded early day startup. He's sort of seen the whole journey, and I wish every growth stage startup could have a CFO like Tom. It's tremendous.
I have to ask you about the moon.
Yeah, please do.
What's going on up there? You guys have all kinds of crazy announcements with NASA.
Yeah.
They're building a city.
Yeah, well, we'll print anything they'll however bold they want to be, we'll be that bold with them. I certainly think we should have a moon base, and it's embarrassing that we don't have one. And the good news about that is the technology that we would need to start building on the moon, we have sort of verified and shown to NASA. We don't need some sort of, we don't need cold fusion breakthroughs. We don't need time travel breakthroughs.
Is that using your synthetic regolith that you had?
Yeah, so we use regolith stimulants. We don't presently make the synthetic regolith. We're like a number of groups do, including NASA, several university groups. We have done vacuum experiments with every synthetic regolith on the market to prove that the building can have the accuracy of the strict requirements needed for safety, radiation shielding, pressurization on the lunar surface. And so, like, at the subsystem level, these technologies exist, and we're excited about getting a shot to go up there and do the first construction of our species on another world.
Is it BYO water?
No, so my graduate studies were in space resources, and so this was a fun way that sort of my academic life and my professional life got to come together. But financially, it's very expensive to get things to the moon. And so, like, one of the reasons why we don't have a moon base yet is finance, it's not technology. And so you have to take these problems seriously, and it's just very expensive to get anything to the moon. So the most financially secure way to get a moon base is have a radical bias for what's called ISRU, in situ resource utilization, or as the explorers used to say, like, live off the land. That we don't have to bring it with you. So all of our experiments, all of our development so far has been done with the assumption that we shouldn't bring anything with us. And so every sample we've produced and all the materials we've delivered to NASA have been exclusively with the local materials we expect to find on the moon and power.
Wow.
Yeah.
100% in situ material.
100%. That's the goal. And right now, I now officially can't see any reason why that shouldn't be the case. I say that we will need life support systems, right? But I'm sort of talking about the infrastructure creation. We're going to need life support systems, those kinds of things. But the actual core infrastructure, the roadways, the walls, the roof structures, the pressure vessels, the berms, landing launch pads. You ought to be able to do all of that robotically and with 100% ISR.
Yeah, from a distance. And so I guess you're trying to implement some of those things on this site to prepare for potentially?
You know, we haven't, we certainly have a lot of like software sharing, material science, understanding sharing, and definitely some robotic subsystem sharing that happened between our commercial residential projects and our NASA projects. We haven't yet gone so far as to like use the same lunar process on a home here on Earth, but it's certainly possible. It's possible as like a matter of fact. The lunar printer goes slower and it would be more expensive than printing with concrete. And so, but if you just wanted to do it for fun to prove you could do it, we could, and actually I'm pretty sure that we will. But I wouldn't say that like laser and microwave sensoring with ISRU materials, I don't see a short-term path to making that faster or cheaper than what you see. And again, sort of this focus on like customers and what's going to work in the real world in the short term, that's the kind of thing that helps us with like not going off on these little rabbit trails. Like, oh, that looks neat, let's do that. It's like, will it be faster, cheaper, than our customers? So this is like a really important heuristic for us.
To pull us back down to Earth.
Yeah.
These slabs, do you put extra care into making sure they're flat?
Yeah, so these, yes, but within limits. We don't ask for like foundation crews to bring out any extra equipment than they normally do. They don't sort of follow a special different process. We just ask them to like take great care in the processes that they do follow, if that makes sense, because we know we can't scale this company if we expect like special exotic slabs everywhere as we go. And so we just said, hey, you can do it the way you normally do it, just please do it well. And so far so good out here.
It really makes that first layer easier for you.
It makes it a tremendous amount of easier. And then the other reason it's important is like at the edge of our slabs we have a downslope to help with the water drainage that you and I talked about earlier. And if that's not done steep enough, the walls won't drain well enough. And if it's done too steep, the first layer can't grab onto the slab structurally. And so it really is important that those details are done correctly. They do them with the normal tools or whatever, but like how accurately they're done matters a lot to us.
Nice. And so you have a big unveiling coming up for South by Southwest.
We do.
Will this project extend to 2024, the 100 Home project?
The construction won't. No. It's anyone's guess right now how fast homes sell and things like that. But we'll be out here.
Yeah, that's a lot of printers to have, so they'll be, I'm sure, shipped somewhere else.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they won't be sitting around the barn.
Do you, nobody has a printed headquarters yet from what I've seen. There's a couple facades around.
Yeah, we don't have plans for that because again, so like we try to keep our printers booked and busy, and we would have to pull a printer out of active service, so to speak, to do something for ourselves. And so far, that hasn't made sense.
You mentioned the House Zero project was kind of an experimental thing you were doing for yourselves, and you mentioned that was like a line of houses, but is that back shelved for now that you have more?
No, I think there'll be more of that coming in. So I still continue to believe and to say out loud to anyone who will listen. 3D printed houses want to be different. The metaphor I use a lot, and maybe I've already used with you, so apologies if I have, is like we used to have wooden bridges, and then eventually we learned to build bridges out of steel. And when we did that, we didn't just make steel bridges, carbon copies of wood bridges. Steel enabled entirely new ways of designing and building bridges. 3D printing does the same thing, and for a long time, understandably so, people would sort of point at houses they understood and say, "Could you print that house for me?" But what I really think is as exciting as the robots themselves as the new architectural possibilities. That if you design houses to play to the strengths of 3D printing, you get further speed and cost savings, and you get some pretty courageously divergent architecture as well. That I think is very, very exciting. Because right now, we're doing this with Lennar, but Lennar is very good at this. Right? They're very efficient. They're very fast. And I think ultimately, we definitely want to go faster and more affordably than Lennar does. But I wouldn't say that the goal is just to reproduce this world faster and cheaper. I think 3D printing makes entirely new things possible, and I think those things are more exciting than the way that we do it now. So we are going to continue to push the boundaries. We invest as much in architecture as we invest in robotics and material science to give you a sense of how much we're serious about this. And some of those. By the time the executives at Lennar saw House Zero, this project was already planned and designed.
Wow.
And so, as always, when I kind of think our most exciting works in front of us.
Yeah, hopefully it stays that way for you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
That way I can keep making videos.
Indeed. We'll try to give you something good to see every time you come.
I look forward to that. And so, are you on site every single day?
No, I'm not. I'm typically out here on Mondays and Thursdays. We have other job sites, we have other customers. I try to spend a couple days a week on product and engineering. So one day a week on business, on just finance, business development, sales. And so I wish I could be out in the field every day. That's certainly the most romantic thing happening in the company usually. But the demands on the CEO are diverse.
So last time we talked, you said you guys don't really get out of bed for less than 100 homes. Is that number changing?
Yeah, that was probably hyperbole, but yeah, I don't. None of the projects we're signing up right now are less than that. So I guess I'm in it. If something very interesting happened with a smaller unit count came along, we would certainly take a look.
Sure.
We'll look at anything. But the questions we ask ourselves when opportunities come to us is it good for the world? Is it good for the business, and is it feasible? And so if it's all three of those things, then we usually say yes. And fortunately, there's plenty of 100+ unit projects that satisfy those requirements.
1,000 homes by 2025?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I like that.
Cool. And with that, I think that was a pretty good thank you for the time. I really appreciate you showing me around today.
Thank you, friend.